All right, we got a little tech tip for you guys today. This is probably only going to be beneficial to 4 or 5 of my freestyle homies out there, but we need to put new seals in GPR Stabilizers. What I normally do is I let them all run their course. Once the seals blow out and I get a big pile of GPR Stabilizers with blown out seals, then I start going through them, changing the seals, putting new oil in them. But what happens with these is some of the oil leaks, so then they have air pockets in them, and right in the middle you have a really dead spot right in the middle that your bars will always turn a little bit. So once in a while you gotta change the seals, freshen up the oil, and that's what we're gonna do. Sup, Ray? Step 1, rubber gloves. Try to keep the mess down a little bit on the old hands. Let's move my top end. That's the next thing I gotta do. All right, first thing I'm gonna do, drain the old oil out. And I'm gonna take these 2 little screws out right here to do that. Okay, once I get those out, just turn this thing upside down. And just go back and forth. All right, that's the oil. Next thing I'm gonna do is remove the dial. Yeah, it's got a little clip right here, which is super pain in the ass to take off with the tools that I have at my house, which are never the right tools. Yep. Okay, now because I just bent the shit out of that thing, getting it off, I'm definitely gonna throw that away. Gonna wanna replace that. For sure wanna have a couple shop rags handy. Now that we got that off, we can spin this. Yep, spin that out, there you go. All right, first order of biz. Man, that's really banged up. Don't know if I have any more of these. Probably, yep, gonna remove these. Now, I don't really know what I'm doing here, but I know I'm gonna coat these O-rings up a little bit with a little bit of the oil. That way, just so everything seats on there nicely. All right, so that's good. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna open this bad boy up. And we got to take the ring off right here. Don't know that you necessarily need to take it off first, but that's what I'm doing today. Okay, that should be good. That one's still stuck. I'm being lazy, so I'm trying not to pull these little Allens out of the ring. I'm just trying to loosen everything all the way, just because it just saves a step, you know? So bingo, there you go. All right, in my experience, the only seal that ever goes bad is this one right here. Unfortunately, you can't get to this seal from here. You still have to take the top off. These things have seals all over them. Every one of these screws has seals. There's seals there. Every one of these things has no ring on them. But in my experience, this one right here is the only one that goes bad. And it's, you know, first one to go bad. So yeah, that's really the only one I'm gonna do today probably. These ones, be careful with these ones, because oh my gosh, yeah, they get stuck. This is scary. Once you Strip one of these out, you are screwed. Strip one of these out and this thing's going to the mechanic. Very important not to over tighten when you're putting this thing back together. Super important. Just go nice and easy, slowly go through them, tighten them little by little, because yeah, they over time they get harder and harder to come out. Like some of these right here are on the brink of, I'll be stripping the Allen pretty soon. Oh gosh. Wow, that one was close. Too tight. Last one. Oh, come on, baby. All right, I think we got lucky this time. We didn't have any of them strip. That's good. Because it is a nightmare if you strip those things. So now we're gonna take all these out. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna spin them, but I'm gonna leave them in because it's just one less step. It's really time consuming. This part is probably the most time consuming part. Just all of these tiny little Allens, loosening them up. Don't know if you noticed, but I have like some real high-tech shit in my garage. This is actually a 1 gallon milk jug. It's organic. Yeah, no big deal. It's the type of big money we spend in my garage here. Okay, that's an exaggeration. Let's see if we got that. Boom bee. Killing. Oh, baby. I got a little ahead of myself there. All right, so we're gonna pop this out. There it goes. Keep that thing right there. Just trying to clean all the gunk out of there. One thing I don't do is I don't spray any of this with contact cleaner, just because as you can see, there's O-rings there. There's still O-rings in these. Any O-ring that you, like if you kind of change some of this stuff and then you spray contact cleaner, I'm pretty sure that kills your O-ring, because that stuff is, you know, it's so cold that it's gonna like shrink up that O-ring and then it's gonna be the wrong size. So these were actually really good O-rings. Minnie over in Europe, one of the freestyle mechanics that we always see over there, he did this stabilizer for me. Had to have been 2 years ago and it still lasted. These are these little X rings that he gets. They're amazing, but I have no idea where to get them in the States. So we're back to the standards. Here's my newest pack of O-rings. Dudes at GPR always hook me up with these things, send me rebuild kits, take care. I mean, they would, honestly, they would rebuild these things for me too if I asked, but you know, I can take an hour of my time and I can do this, or I can send it away and not have a stabilizer for a week, 2 weeks. So sometimes you gotta be a little bit self-sufficient. Now, once again, I'm gonna take this oil and I'm gonna just rub it all around on that O-ring. I don't really know if this is the best way to do it. Sometimes I use grease, sometimes I just use the oil, the existing oil from this thing. Really want to coat up that O-ring, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the dial back in there, and you do not want, you can break the O-ring just putting the dial in. So you want to be real careful. You want to make sure it's plenty slippery. That way it'll just slide right by there. That's what we want. Let's get that thing all gooey. All right, and then cross your fingers. There you go, just popped in. Hopefully she was lubed up enough. Find out as soon as I put this thing back on. If it leaks immediately, wasn't lubed up enough. So I could change this one right here, but I definitely don't have any I don't have any leaking coming from the top of my stabilizer. All the leaking that I had was coming out of this hole. You have, you know, the ring goes right here, so I was having oil coming down and dripping off the ring, which means that it's the bottom means it's the bottom O-ring. So I'm only gonna change that bottom O-ring. This O-ring right here hasn't went bad yet. It's been kicking ass. Not gonna mess with it. So we're gonna put the top back on, same as we took it off. Remember, like I said earlier, so important not to over tighten. So basically I'll start in, you know, the four corners kinda, or the four different points of it. That way it's sitting kind of evenly instead of just going straight through them all. I'll do bottom, top, my right, my left. I'll get those not even snug. I'm just going to tighten them down. And then after that, I'll go across. That way everything sits evenly. Hopefully you don't have any issues. Seriously, be so careful with these. They seem to get extra tight after sitting for a couple months in there. And then you can't get them out. And then you'll have to drill these things out if you're not careful. So just go easy, okay? Okay, so it should all be sitting there nice and even. So now I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna start at the bottom one. I'm just gonna give them a little snug. I'll probably do 2 laps around snugging them. I'm not forcing any of these. Okay, I'd say that's good there. Now, I'm gonna put the bottom ring back on. And don't be, I really screwed up here because I didn't pay attention to where the dial is right now. So I'm hoping I set the dial straight. I guess I'll find out once I get this thing on here. This is actually like my least favorite job because it's so messy. So I'll give these a tiny little snug and I'll just make sure I'm centered real quick. It's going all the way that way. That's perfect. Okay. Turns out I'm not a complete idiot. Actually, yes I am. Now what you can do, the guys at GPR will actually sell or send replacement rings right here when yours gets worn out. I only got not too long on this ring, but what can happen is this spot where the pin sits in can kind of clap out a little bit, and then you'll have a little play just from your pin and your ring. I have an extra ring. I'm not going to use it right now, but I am going to replace the pin because the pin wears out first. So I'll get a new pin, make that connection real nice and tight. But here we go. We want to get this on, tighten these guys on here. Once again, be careful. I'd say if anything, you might want to tighten these a little more since there's going to be quite a bit of torque on them. But still, be careful. Just, you know, don't go crazy. Let's get this baby in here. All the oil we can get in there. Just get a little bit of that oil down in there. Soak this thing with oil. You don't want to rip these seals just sliding it in. So now what I'm going to do, this is tough. It's loaded with old oil. I'm going to push it in and I'm going to turn it as I slowly push it. Turn and push. Just let it kind of find the groove itself. And I'm hoping that works. No way to know for sure. Probably just gonna find out my first ride. You know, sometimes I've had these things last, when I do them, sometimes I've had them last months. Sometimes I've literally not made it to the end of a ride before, so. They're tough. They are definitely tough, but the more careful you are, the better. Now, if you'll remember, we got rid of that old clip that we had because it really clapped it out being not careful, but luckily the dudes at GPR are awesome. They've got me so many goodies here to make sure I'm taken care of. So yeah, going back on, way easier than taking off. I'm just going to line this up. If I had the right tool, this would be way easier. Okay, I'm gonna line that up, open it, push it down in, bang, look at that. Who are you, right? You know? All right, that's a stabilizer. Okay, now probably the biggest pain in the ass is going to be the oil. I'm gonna show you the way that is accessible to everybody and is also very much my least favorite. Oof. This sucks, guys. I'm telling you what, this sucks. All right, next step. You're not gonna like this. So I use fork oil. I use 20 weight fork oil for inside the stabilizer. Honestly, you probably don't need that much if you're just starting freestyle. You could have a lighter weight, which I think for one, the lighter weight is actually gonna be easier on the seals, just less resistance with a thinner oil. So your seal might actually last a little bit longer if you use a lighter weight. I use 20 weight because I do double grab flips. So if you're not doing double grab flips, you don't need 20 weight. Here's the worst part. Ugh. Gotta just fill this thing up with some oil. Wish I had a smaller jug, but I don't. So we're gonna fill it up with some oil. We wanna make sure we have our screws handy, the ones that are gonna close up these holes right here. We also wanna make sure we are on least resistance. Put it on the 1 right there. I'm gonna make a huge mess right now, but there's no other way that I know how to do this. So we're on 1. Remember this little arm, we're gonna need to be able to get a hold of that. I fully submerge it, and then I push that little arm back and forth, over and over and over again. It's gonna get stiffer every single time you do it. You're gonna see air bubbles come out. You wanna keep doing, look at all those air bubbles that just came out there. So you gotta keep doing this until no air bubbles come out. You gotta go all the way side to side. Oh my gosh, yeah, look at that. Take your time so your finger doesn't slide off and you don't launch oil everywhere. Ton more air. You wanna work all that air out of there so it's oil only, no air. Air pocket is the reason that we did this in the first place. So do it the right way and do it once. As the stabilizer fills up with oil, that arm gets way stiffer and harder to push back and forth. And you know, you could just end up slipping your finger off and launching oil right in your face. That's not very fun. I think we're actually getting there. Not really getting any bubbles right now. Oh, there's the oil. See that? Luckily I was going the other way right there. Yeah, it's getting stiff and it's slippery as shit. Okay, and then I'm gonna go right back to the middle. I'm gonna pick it straight up out. I'm gonna hold it right like this. Do not move the arm now, because you don't wanna put any air back in there. This is tough with the most oily hands you've ever had in your life. So I'm gonna give this a little fingernail tight first, close them all the way in. Trusty old screwdriver here. 1, 2. That's a wrap, folks. That's how you do it. I would not advise cleaning the oil off with contact cleaner at this point. Like I said, I just don't want to mess with contact cleaner anywhere near these O-rings, you know, because that basically the extreme cold that the contact cleaner creates could shrink the O-ring and ruin it immediately. So I'm not going to use any contact cleaner on this. Just going to wipe it. Shop rag here. Okay, that's one of them. Now I only have 2 more. I said I was gonna replace the pin, but I'm actually gonna leave the pin because I'm not having any problems with that right now. Just had a blown out stabilizer, so Let's just, yeah, see that pin's pretty tight. Let's get these babies in here. This is your first time ever working on anything. Don't tighten one side down just all the way as tight as you can, then go to the other. Snug them both a little bit. Side to side, nice and even. Let it sit down there nice and even. Okay, that's looking good. And we'll put the bars back on. So one thing I do, don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, I make a little mark right there on my bar mount that matches up with a little mark I made on my bars. Just takes, you know, a little bit of the guesswork out of like putting your bars back on. Just match your marks up, tighten everything down, and then you're where you need to be. Okay, tighten your bar mounts in a cross pattern all the time. Dude, these Harbor Freight Allens suck. It's definitely not a good fit. Every time I tighten it, it gets stuck in there. There it is. Now let's check this thing out. See what kind of gap we still got here, if any. So we're on 1 right now. Feels pretty smooth. Let's crank it up to, let's go to a, this is about the lowest setting I ride it on. I hear some oil making some noise in there. I don't think that's good. Probably means I didn't do a good enough job. Okay, let's go to double grab flip territory right here. That tiny little bit of movement right in the middle, you never really get away from that. I'd say this thing's pretty tight, and we have the most air pocket out as possible. So sometimes after like your first ride, you'll see a little bit of oil dripping down here, but in my opinion, it's just because you submerge this thing in oil. It's still got a lot of oil sitting around the edges that you can't really get off there without contact cleaner. So some of it will gather and go down here. So your first ride, wipe that off, see if it gathers again later. Yeah, I think this one's pretty good. Another tip for you guys, I always turn my stabilizers all the way down when I'm not using them. I'm not sure why, but it just seems to me like they last a little longer if I do that. All right, well that's it. That's my tech tip for today on how to change your seals on a GPR stabilizer. They're a pain in the butt, but they're like the most essential thing that you can use on your freestyle bike if you want to be a freestyle motocross rider. Keeping your bars from turning while you're letting go of the handlebars, massively important. If you do that early on, you're gonna save yourself a lot of crashes through your career. So keep your GPR stabilizer fresh oil, good seals, keep that air pocket out of the middle. That's how you do it. Super easy, just time consuming.